I used to believe that exhaustion was a badge of honor. You know those people who proudly say they only slept 4 hours? That used to be me. I wasn't born that way. When I was a kid, I dreamed about ordinary things. I wanted to travel. I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to fall in love, have lazy Sunday mornings, maybe write a book someday. Back then, work was just something adults did. Life was supposed to happen after work. Somewhere along the way, those two ideas quietly switched places. Nobody noticed. Not even me. It started with my first real job. Nothing glamorous. Just a tiny office with flickering fluorescent lights, cheap coffee that tasted like burned cardboard, and a manager who measured dedication by how late you stayed. The first week I left exactly at 5. The second week I stayed until 6. By the third week, I was apologizing for leaving before everyone else. Nobody asked me to. I simply wanted to prove that I deserved to be there. Funny how dangerous that sentence is. I want to prove myself. Because once you start proving yourself, you never stop. Every compliment became another expectation. Every promotion became another mountain. Every success simply moved the finish line farther away. I kept telling myself, just one more project. Just one more busy season. Just one more promotion. Life would begin afterward, except afterward never came. Instead, my calendar became my life. Birthdays. Sorry, I have meetings. Family dinners. I'll catch the next one. Weekend trips. Maybe next month. Next month became next year. Eventually, people stopped inviting me. Not because they were angry. Because they already knew the answer, no. I didn't notice it happening. Or maybe I refused to notice. My apartment slowly transformed into a place where I only slept. The refrigerator stayed empty because I was always eating takeout at my desk. Laundry piled higher every week. Dust gathered on books I kept promising myself I'd read. My guitar leaned against the wall. Still perfectly in tune. Untouched. Sometimes I'd walk past it and think, I miss playing. Then another email would arrive. Another deadline. Another emergency that somehow couldn't wait until tomorrow. The guitar could. Apparently. Months blurred together. Monday became Friday. January became October. 1 year quietly became 5. People around me changed. Coworkers got married. Had children. Moved away. Started businesses. Quit to travel the world. Meanwhile, I became reliable. That's what everyone called me, reliable. Always available. Always answering messages. Always fixing problems. Always saying yes. It's strange. People praise you for sacrificing yourself. At first it feels good. Then it becomes expected. Then it becomes required. Eventually, it's simply who you are. The dependable one. The one who never says no. The one who doesn't have a life outside work anyway. I laughed at those jokes. Because they were true. One evening, I caught my reflection in the elevator mirror after another 14-hour day. Wrinkled shirt. Bloodshot eyes. Phone still in my hand. I looked older, not old, just worn out. Like someone had been quietly sanding pieces off me every single day. I smiled anyway. That's what professionals do, right? One Friday night, my mother called. She asked if I was coming home for my father's birthday. I stared at my laptop. I had 3 presentations due Monday. I can't, I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she simply replied, I understand. Those 2 words haunted me more than if she'd been angry. I understand. Because she really did. She had watched work consume my father too. He missed birthdays, school plays, anniversaries. He always promised things would slow down next year. They never did. I had become exactly like him, without ever meaning to. The next morning I arrived at the office before sunrise, again. There was something strangely peaceful about empty offices. No phones, no conversations, just rows of silent desks waiting to be filled with people pretending they weren't tired. Around 9, everyone arrived. Someone looked at me and laughed. Were you here all night? I laughed too, no. Only because I'd gone home for 4 hours. Everyone thought it was funny, including me. That's the scary part. We celebrated unhealthy behavior, like athletes celebrating broken records. Who answered emails at midnight? Who skipped vacations? Who worked through the flu? Who canceled holidays? Congratulations. You're dedicated. Nobody ever asked whether dedication had become addiction. Weeks later, my annual performance review arrived. I expected praise. I had sacrificed everything. Instead, my manager looked down our stack of papers and said, "Your work is excellent." I smiled. Then he continued, "But lately you've seemed less energetic. Less energetic." I almost laughed. I'd given this company thousands of hours that belonged to my own life. And somehow, it still wasn't enough. He leaned forward. "We need people who bring passion." Passion? I wanted to ask him something. How much passion can a person have left after giving away every piece of themselves? Instead, I nodded. I promised to work even harder. I walked back to my desk feeling strangely empty. That evening, I stayed later than usual. Not because I had to, because I no longer knew what else to do. The office lights automatically switched off at 10. Motion sensors. I waved my arms until they turned back on. For a second, I realized something terrifying. The building assumed nobody would still be there. Except me. I sat alone in the silence. The glow of my monitor reflected in the dark windows. Outside, people were laughing. Restaurants were full. Couples walked hand in hand. Friends were creating memories. I was formatting another spreadsheet that nobody would remember in 6 months. I told myself it mattered. I needed to believe that. Because if it didn't, then exactly had I been sacrificing my life for? I closed my laptop just after midnight. As I stood up, a sharp pain shot across my chest. Not unbearable, just enough to make me freeze. It lasted only a few seconds. Then it disappeared. I took a deep breath. "Probably stress," I whispered. I picked up my bag, turned off the lights, and walked toward the elevator. I had no idea that my life was about to change forever. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. The pain came back. This time it was stronger. Not sharp, heavy, as if someone had placed a concrete block on my chest. I reached for the handrail. Suddenly, breathing became something I had to think about. The ride down lasted less than a minute. It felt like an hour. When the doors opened, I stumbled into the lobby. The security guard looked up from his desk. "Sir, are you all right?" I wanted to answer. Instead, I sank into one of the chairs. For the first time in years, I stopped moving. An ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedic asked me simple questions. "What day is it?" I hesitated. "When did you last eat?" I couldn't remember. "Do you take time off?" I almost laughed. Time off. That sounded like something other people did. The hospital smelled strangely clean. Machines beeped softly around me. Doctors ran tests for hours. Eventually, one of them pulled up a chair. "The good news," he said, "is that you didn't have a heart attack." I finally exhaled. Then he continued. "The bad news is that your body thinks you did." I frowned. He explained that months, years, of constant stress had pushed my nervous system into survival mode. High blood pressure, severe exhaustion, sleep deprivation, anxiety. My body wasn't breaking because of one bad day. It was collapsing under thousands of ordinary ones. Then he asked me something nobody at work had ever asked. "When was the last time you felt happy?" The room became very quiet. I searched for an answer. Nothing came. Not because I'd never been happy. Because I couldn't remember. Somewhere between deadlines, promotions, quarterly reports, I had misplaced joy itself. The doctor signed my discharge papers. Take a few weeks off. A few weeks. The idea felt terrifying. Who would answer the emails? Who would finish the reports? Who would solve the problems? I reached for my phone before I even left the hospital. 37 unread emails. 8 missed calls. 3 messages marked urgent. My heart started racing again. Then I noticed something. Every message ended the same way. "Please respond as soon as possible." None of them asked if I was okay, not one. The next morning I woke up at 6. Not because I had to, because my body didn't know any other rhythm. I showered, put on a dress shirt, packed my laptop, then I stopped halfway to the front door. I remembered. I wasn't going to work. I stood there holding my laptop, like a man carrying a key to a house that no longer existed. For years, my identity had been simple. I wasn't Michael or a son, or a friend. I was my job. Without work, who was I? That question frightened me more than the hospital ever had. The first few days felt unbearable. Silence filled the apartment. I didn't know what to do with free time. I opened my laptop dozens of times, closed it again, walked in circles, checked my email every 15 minutes. My mind kept whispering, "You're falling behind." Then one afternoon, I noticed the guitar, still standing exactly where I'd left it years earlier. A thin layer of dust covered the strings. I picked it up. The first chord sounded terrible. My fingers had forgotten where they belonged. But slowly, something familiar returned. Not skill, peace. For the first time in years. An hour passed without me thinking about work. Just 1 hour. It felt miraculous. A week later, I visited my parents. My father opened the door. He looked older than I remembered. Not because he'd changed, because I had been too busy to notice. We sat on the porch together as the sun disappeared behind the trees. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry." I looked at him. For what? For teaching you that work mattered more than life. I didn't know he carried that guilt. He stared at the ground. I thought I was providing for my family. He smiled sadly. I didn't realize my family needed me more than my paycheck. Those words stayed with me, because they weren't just about him. They were about me too. Months passed. I returned to work, but something inside me had changed. For the first time in my career, I left on time. People noticed. Half day. Someone joked. No, I smiled. Just a normal one. When meetings were scheduled during dinner with my family, I declined. When emails arrived at midnight, they waited until morning. At first, people resisted. Then something unexpected happened. Nothing collapsed. The company survived. Projects finished. Clients stayed. The world kept spinning. I had spent years believing I was holding everything together. The truth, I had only been holding myself hostage. One afternoon, a younger coworker stopped by my desk. He looked exhausted. "I don't know how you do it," he said. "You always seem calm now." I smiled. "You know what changed?" He shook his head. I finally realized something. He leaned closer. "Work is part of life. It isn't life itself." He nodded slowly. I don't know if he understood then. I hope he does someday. Before it's too late. Years have passed since that night in the elevator. The promotions, I barely remember them. The reports, gone. The deadlines, forgotten. But I remember teaching my niece how to ride a bicycle. I remember watching my parents laugh over dinner. I remember road trips with no destination. Sunday mornings with coffee and music. Rain tapping against the windows while I played the guitar I'd almost abandoned forever. Those memories stayed. Not because they made me richer, because they made me alive. Sometimes people ask if I regret working so hard. The answer surprises them, no. I don't regret working. Work gave me skills, confidence, purpose. What I regret is believing that my value depended on how exhausted I was. Somewhere along the way, our culture confused productivity with worth. We started measuring human beings by calendars, paychecks, job titles, inboxes. But none of those things will sit beside your hospital bed. None of them will hold your hand when you're afraid. None of them will remember your laugh after you're gone. People will, if you've made time for them. If you're listening to this while answering emails, while eating lunch at your desk, while telling yourself, just one more busy week. I want to ask you the same question my doctor asked me. When was the last time you felt truly happy? Not relieved, not productive, happy. If you can't answer immediately, maybe that's your answer. Success is a wonderful thing, but success that costs your health, your family, your friendships, your dreams, isn't success. It's a trade, and the price is far higher than anyone tells you. One day, your company will replace your position. Your inbox will belong to someone else. Your office will have another name on the door. But your children, your parents, your friends, they can never replace you. Neither can you. So answer the phone. Take the vacation. Play the guitar. Watch the sunset. Go home on time. Because life isn't waiting for retirement. It isn't waiting for next year. It isn't waiting until you're finally successful enough. Life is happening now. And the saddest thing that can happen to a person is realizing they spent their entire life making a living, without ever truly living.